really intriguing contest at the MCG today. Let me ask you this, does it say more about how big that win was for Sam Mitchell and his Hawks, or how big a loss it was for Chris Scott and his Cats?
Well, no doubt Geelong will be really hurting, but this was much more about Hawthorn and Sam Mitchell. This was by far his biggest win, in my view, since he took over the club. A home game for the Hawks, a big crowd by this year's not great standards at the MCG on a bad day. Massive for Sam Mitchell, and as critical as we were last year of the handling of the Clarkson Mitchell handover, Damien, I reckon Hawthorn people will now be congratulating themselves on the decision.
Yeah, well, it's hard not to. And while we were critical, and you were as much as anyone of how it was done, the actual decision to get this guy in, it was just bringing forward a decision I think they'd made some years ago, and other clubs were going to make the decision and take it away from Hawthorn's behalf. We get to see it, don't we? Already 5 rounds into him as coach of Hawthorn, to be sitting on the same scoreline as the Cats after that particular game with 3 wins and 2 losses each. It's a massive wrap for him in his early stage.
There's absolutely no doubt Alistair Clarkson will remain in high demand, but there's also no doubt that his time was well and truly over at Hawthorn. Great performance by some of the oldies today, but so many young players doing well too. We spoke to him on 3AW before the game, and I asked him if he was coaching, in a sense, with one hand behind his back because of the Clarkson money that's in the soft cap at the moment for Hawthorn.
I think every coach in the competition would love to have 1 to 2 more staff. And for us, it's probably around the development space, the way we're looking at our season with some of our restrictions. Our football department is very strong, but then by the same token, it's not as if I send Robert Harvey to only look at performance. He's doing a lot of craft and individual small training rather than just purely looking at how to pull apart Geelong and their system.
He's doing a lot, Sam. He even tried to poach the W medalist, Emily Bates, rang her last week, and looks like he's Hawthorn bound, but a fabulous performance from the Hawks.
He was. It was as good a coaching performance as I've seen, I reckon. I love the way that they attacked the week. Hawthorn, they were really physical at training, but they were measured in that, and this is what I noticed. So this clip, I reckon it goes for 27 seconds. It sums up the game. You're going to see Hawthorn break 7 tackles and Geelong miss 7. This was the game for me. Sometimes it is about hunger. It's about how hard you attack the footy and then execute. So they're going to break another one here from Warple, who was a sub. He knocks it on. Just look at the physicality from the Hawthorn players under immense pressure. That's Bruce with 2 Geelong opponents, more butters up, nothing special going inside 50 at all. But that was the conditions, that was the game, and that was where Hawthorn won it. Now, a big story for Geelong is the form of the Brownlow medalist, Patrick Dangerfield, since round 1, where he was best on ground. This is his numbers. And they're not synonymous with Patrick Dangerfield numbers. You wouldn't see him ever really have a month where he's only had 20 disposals. Once or more, the coach was asked about him post-match.
We do tend to back our players. We give them a structure that we'd like to work within and then empower them. So if you want to read from that he's choosing to be out of kind of the action a little bit more, for his own reasons, then that I think that's a reasonable assessment to make. But yeah, we're not deliberately keeping him out of there longer than we want him to be in there because of his body.
Yeah, it's interesting. He admitted that he had a couple of niggles, Damo, but he's essentially saying they're leaving it up to Patrick to choose where he plays, and they've got that much faith and confidence in him to be able to do that.
Is this the niggle from early last year too?
He didn't elaborate.
He never got over that properly.
No, he said he wouldn't be comfortable with me speaking about it. I was quite a bit in that, but essentially they're playing an injured player and he's not able to play the position that they'd like him to play.
But that happens in footy, though, doesn't it?
I think if you put your hand up, you've got to be at the coach's wherever he wants to put you. So if the game...
I feel like Nat Fyfe went through that for almost 18 months where he was choosing where he had to play because of how his body was feeling.
You're a bit hamstrung, aren't you, though, if you're a coach? Like, game's on the line, 5 minutes to go. I want Dangerfield on ball in the thick of the action. Now, if he doesn't feel like he's comfortable to go in there, it's a tough spot for the club to be in.
So what would you do if you're Chris Scott?
I'd probably still play him, but I'd probably play him as a forward, Bontempelli style or something, and try and get the best out of him. But I just thought it was interesting that Patrick Dangerfield is dictating where he's playing.
Damo, we hasn't signed his contract, Chris Scott, either. Just, a weekly update.
This has been the longest going...
They've agreed on everything except there's a couple of clauses. It's sitting in the offices of TLA, Craig Kelly.
You said this a month ago.
Not signed.
It has to be at the top of the pile, surely, to be signed.
We're keeping an eye on it. It hasn't been signed yet.